Okay, be honest. Your little one is reading along at a decent pace, and you're happy with the speed and flow. And then they hit a brick wall, a word that seems to stop them dead in their tracks. Now, you've resisted the urge just to tell them the word, and that's great. But instead, you found yourself saying, "Come on, just sound it out." Now, you're not the only one. Parents tell me this all the time, especially ones who have invested the time to teach the letter sounds and really believe that phonics skills are the way to go. Now, it seems like a simple, direct request. Use the tools I taught you. In fact, not a week went by where I didn't hear a teacher yelling that exact phrase to a class full of teary-eyed children who were struggling the same way. And here's the truth. Yelling "sound it out" doesn't exactly teach your child how to read. It didn't help the kids in school either. In fact, it usually made things worse. So today I'm going to show you why this phrase doesn't work. And more importantly, I'll give you the exact words to say instead so your child actually learns how to read. They're still going to sound it out, but this time you can save your lungs for more important things like screaming, "Stop drawing on your sister," or "That doesn't belong in your nose." The usual stuff. Now, my name is Marc, and I've been teaching children to read for over 20 years. I know what works, and I've learned the hard way so that you don't have to. It's time to pay it forward and help you teach your child to read the right way. Now, here's the problem with the phrase "sound it out." First, it's too vague. Kids don't know what step you want them to take. Should they say the first letter, the whole word, break it into chunks? They're lost. Second, it can feel like pressure, like a command. If your child's already stuck, repeating the same phrase louder only adds stress. And third, it often teaches guessing. Ay. Now, your child will say anything in hopes that Lady Luck will get them past this little nightmare. Blurting random sounds and hoping they're right does not, in any way, prove that they have learned to decode words. Instead of "sound it out," let's rephrase the narrative and use clear, specific prompts. Now, here are 3 that have worked wonders for me. Now, with a word like cat, we can say, "Hey, let's look at the first letter. What sound does C make?" Now, this focuses your child's brain on the entry point. And you would be surprised by the number of children who can blend words 10 letters long only to ignore and skip over much shorter words because they could not identify and connect with the initial sound. Now, let's take this word "fan," for instance, and here's another approach that works very well. And we can say, let's stretch the sounds out. F, ah, fan. All right? But we don't want to repeat it. F, 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 ah, ah, ah. Unless you want them to develop a stutter, and that is not the way words are pronounced. Now remember, there are very few letters that can't be stretched out. I'll display those on the screen right now. Now I'm showing you these exceptions because when you come across them and you can't stretch them out, you might be tempted to repeat them. Look at these 2 words. We have turtle, or aw, g. Now, one final tip on blending those non-stretchable letters. You want to sound these letters out without adding an sound, like t, k, d, and so on. We want to keep the sound pure by keeping it short, clipped, and clear, or you can expect blends like this. K, a, t, ka-ata. Now, with CVC words, these are single-syllable words spelled with one consonant sound, followed by one vowel sound, and then a final consonant sound. The blend itself can be chunked or grouped in 2 ways. Now we can concentrate on the front end. Let's look at our word "fan" again. We can go fa and then add the N. Or we can spend a little extra time and group the end part, the an, and start with that first. Now the an is what is referred to as a word family. And if they can blend that "an," we can throw in a few extra words by swapping the initial sound producing words like can, man, tan, pan, ran, and van. You see how one troublesome word can become a valuable teaching moment? So who cares if they veered off course from their fluid reading earlier? There's a good chance they won't make the same mistake twice because they know how to read the troublesome words and other words like it with similar spelling. The rhythm and flow will be even smoother next time. It was worth taking the time to fix the issue to avoid them mispronouncing the word and thinking that's the correct way, or guessing the word, or skipping it altogether. Now, another thing we can do is to change the materials we're teaching with. Sometimes whiteboards and flashcards, well, that can get a little dull. So try switching it up and maybe using those magnetic fridge letters like that, or even little Play-Doh in creative ways. The tactile approach adds a multi-sensory learning experience that will break down more barriers than you can ever imagine. Now, for longer words, we break the problem down into smaller bite-sized mini puzzles. You'll find that dismantling the word by syllables is a great way to start. Now, here's a few examples. Let's start with two-syllable words, like comic, com-ic, and happen, hap-pen. And then we have three-syllable words, like fantastic, fan-tas-tic. And four-syllable words, like academic, ac-a-dem-ic. Nice and easy to digest with bite-sized decodable chunks. Now, compound words like skateboard and cupcake. These are pretty obvious. We can break these off into their individual words, so it's much easier to blend. Now, in this way, we help them to see how sounding out words is not only achievable, but actually it can be a fun thing to do. When it feels fun, your child will never have to be coerced into sounding out words. They'll just know that when it comes to an unfamiliar word, it's time to put on the thinking cap and work it out exactly as you've shown them how. So by swapping sound it out for these new phrases and guided steps, you're actually teaching a strategy, not just giving an order. Now, with that said, we can't be asking them to break down words and solve these mini puzzles if we haven't taught them the sounds first or shown them how to blend these sounds together. Now, when it comes to teaching your child to read, there are so many moving parts, it can seem overwhelming. Each of these moving parts has to be taught in a carefully organized sequence so that a child can feel confident as they build upon one mastered skill after the next. Even the individual sounds you teach can be grouped in such a way that your child will read their first words within days. Now, you've asked your child to sound it out because you know that phonics works. That's awesome. Now, would you like to learn how to use this powerful tool to its fullest advantage? Now, as we have just discovered, there are ways of helping your child progress just by the way we phrase our questions, and that's just the tip of the iceberg. Remember this, I've got your back. I want you to succeed. Subscribe to this channel because you're about to discover that teaching your child to read is easier than you ever imagined. You've got this. Now stay wonderful, and I'll see you next time.